Hi there and welcome along to Staff Treats. My name is Catherine Wilson and I'm joined today by a very interesting entrepreneur named Daniel Johnston. Welcome along, Daniel.
Hi there.
And how would you describe yourself? As the startup mentor, is that correct?
That's a difficult question to answer. I do a variety of things focusing on startups. So primarily I work with startups to solve problems related to their growth and customer acquisition. So that's kind of one area. The other areas, I run a mental health company called EQ, and I also mentor for Google's accelerator program, Launchpad.
You have a very interesting life. I'm sure you're always busy, but it's important not to always be busy, but fulfilled. So Daniel, what is one thing you would advise small to medium businesses to do in order to help the productivity of their workforce?
There are two things that I would highly recommend. One is empathy and the other is communication. So empathy is a difficult one because it takes time to develop if you don't already have strong empathy. And by empathy, I mean understanding sort of like the core motivations of people and sort of like how other people think. And then communication is not just talking, it's really understanding the fundamentals of what someone means when they say something. There's a great book about this called Nonviolent Communication, which I'd highly recommend. If you haven't read it, read it. It talks all about how to communicate empathetically. And that's been, I would say, the majority of the success I've had with my teams is being able to communicate with them empathetically and understand what they're trying to say and what they mean by it.
So Daniel, what do you think that small businesses and startups do wrong at the moment that disencourages their staff and causes them to be unproductive in their workplace?
So again, a good question. What I've found is that a lot of startup founders create a business because it's their mission. The problem that they're trying to solve with their business is something really dear or close to them. And when they've achieved a certain level of growth, they realize that they're going to need a hire, and they hire whoever they can. They don't take time in understanding, is this person right for the job, not in terms of just skill match, but also like culture fit. And then when they do come on board, the founders or the CEO is very focused on growing the business and treats employees as like another asset. And in some environments this actually works. And if you can motivate the right employee for a particular area, so generally in this case it's like financial, where the job might not be enjoyable or the communication might not be good, then that's fine. But that's a rare occurrence because people aren't that simple. So the biggest issue I see is just not treating people like people. And that sounds very generic and it sounds very cliche, but it is so important to understand that there's a human being sitting there. And even if you find it frustrating or boring to sort of motivate, develop, and improve your employees, taking the time to do that can actually have really great business productivity results. So I would highly recommend anyone to actually take time and think to themselves, how can I improve my relationship and improve the performance of this employee? Like, what can I do to help them? That's a question you should always be asking.
So we've actually had some feedback from some of your co-workers. A lady called Emily, she got in touch and told us that you're very good at getting the best out of people. So what do you think is your secret weapon in order to encourage and motivate people?
Oh man, secret weapon. That is a good question. I think a lot of it comes down to empathy and when I first started having team members, I would push the stuff that I wanted them to do on them, and I realized actually you've got to ask them, and it's that simple. How many times have we been asked by our bosses, by senior people, what is it that you're trying to achieve? What do you want to do? Because I don't know about you, that's a very rare question for me. They don't ask me, they tell me. And I find that simply by asking people, like, what is it that you're trying to achieve, like in the big picture, and then break it down. How can we get there? How can we help you to get to that point? It's that simple. And a lot of time people don't know, but I find that if you work with them on their process to understand like the long-term goal, even if that doesn't end up being where they're trying to get to, but like that journey, that's great. Ask people and support them on that process, and you'll find that they're loyal, motivated, and good.
So Daniel, what 3 practical things would you advise for new startups and small to medium businesses to do in order to motivate their current staff and workplace?
So one of the first things is to create a learning plan, regardless of where you are in a position, like in the company, whether you're the CEO or not. It's learning is never something that you can necessarily like finish. There's always continuing. So the first thing is a learning plan, which is basically the way that I help to do this with my team. It's a marketing-based learning plan with a bunch of free courses focusing on like 5 or 6 different topics like social media, paid acquisition, data science, that kind of thing. And having a specific course with specific like deliverables. So I expect to, once someone completes the course, we then execute that in the company and we try to see what person has learned. And sometimes we actually do like talks every week or two, and we say, okay, so this person has done this. How do we explain that to the rest of the team? So that's one thing, and that's been really, really effective. The other thing is weekly meetings. So I try to have one-on-ones with each member of my team, and I try to make them informal. So sometimes we might like go for a walk, we might go to a coffee shop, have a coffee. I've done one at mini golf once. And as part of these weekly meetings, it's a time for someone to be like truly open and honest. Like, how are they finding the work? What's going on? What are their major challenges? What are they enjoying? And the more formal aspect of this is I try to get them to produce 3 items that they can improve. So, for example, increase, I don't know, the speed at which they work, or like be more organized or something like that. But I try to get KPIs so we can measure the changes. And the other aspect is I try to get them to provide feedback on me. So what 3 things can they do, can I do to make their life easier or more effective or better? And I find that really interesting. And in the beginning I used to say, oh, just tell me, you know, whenever you have an idea. And they were like, oh, we can't think of anything. Can't think of a way for you to improve. And I'm like, no, there's always a way. So by telling an employee, like, as part of your job, give me 3 things, they'll find stuff. And actually, once you start that process, it becomes a lot easier. And the third is I am really flexible as an employer. If someone wants to work from home at any point, sure. If they want to do that, that's fine. If they want to take the day off because they're hungover, that's fine. I don't actually mind, because we're human beings, and actually, as long as I trust them to get the work done, then that's cool, because I know that they will get that done, and they know that I know, and they appreciate that kind of relationship that allows them to feel comfortable being really open, authentic, and genuine. And when you get the genuine person sitting next to you at work, that's fantastic, because you can go so far with that.
Thank you, Daniel. And if you've liked what you've seen today, please make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel. See you soon.